The great Xia dynasty granted 1 day of rest every 10 days. As a close official to the emperor, I only get 1 day off every 30 days. On this day, I ignore all matters and sit for a long time in front of my colleague Zhu Qingzhou's grave, burning paper money and chanting prayers for his return. Although the grave is desolate, I have so many heartfelt words to share with him that I never feel lonely, until one day. After I had buried my head and wholeheartedly cursed 438 times, calling someone a turtle bastard, I looked up and suddenly realized someone was sitting beside me. He added a fresh handful of soil. The grave is well maintained. I nodded. Matters concerning the afterlife should not be taken lightly. He poked at the fire basin. The paper money burns quite vigorously. I sighed. The balance of yin and yang cannot be approached with pettiness. He remained silent. After a while, I finally said, "But when did I, Zhu Qingzhou, die, Song Nanji? Don't you run away." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. I'm under too much pressure. The current emperor is diligent in governance and cares for the people. But he is too diligent. Working under him is exhausting. After 5 years in the court, I've lost 1/3 of my hair. When tying my hair up, I have to add a handful of fake hair just to barely maintain my reputation as the most handsome man in Great Xia. But just a year ago, Zhu Qingzhou and I had a disagreement over how to handle the plague in Lu County. From shouting in the court to coming to blows, I ended up scratching his face, which led to him angrily snatching off my wig. Everyone saw the part in my hair that was wider than the city moat. I froze. The civil and military officials were stunned. Even the emperor, who was waiting for us to finish arguing so he could deal with us, was stunned. The culprit merely brushed off the lingering strands of hair on his hand and said nonchalantly, "Sorry about that, handsome." Later, while drinking with a friend, he helped me recall that at the time, I was slumped on the ground, my eyes bloodshot, and it took 8 people to hold me back as I tried to launch myself at Zhu Qingzhou. I've already come to terms with it, raising a cup of clear liquor to my lips. I downed it and said indifferently, "Let's not bring up the past, it's undignified." But I was absolutely furious, so they summoned people overnight, found a piece of auspicious land, built a tomb for Zhu Qingzhou, carved a tombstone, and burned paper offerings. My mood improved a lot. From then on, whenever I felt even slightly unhappy, I liked to come and sit by Zhu Qingzhou's grave. It's just a pity that such good news couldn't be conveyed to him personally. My name is Song Nanji, and I am the sole disciple of Song Qingru, the wealthiest clan leader in Jiangnan. He has no children of his own, only me as his student, and he has devoted the entire clan's resources to my upbringing, never allowing me to fall short in any way. The Song ancestors often served as high-ranking officials in the imperial court. However, after the turmoil of the times and the rise and fall of dynasties, when the current emperor turned the tide and established the Great Xia Kingdom, the Song family never again produced high-ranking officials. My master, Song Qingru, is a man of profound knowledge, well-versed in both ancient and modern affairs. The emperor personally issued an edict summoning him to serve as an official, but he resolutely refused. Dedicating himself entirely to nurturing the younger generation of the clan, he values me the most. At the age of 14, my master moved his entire family to Chang'an, all for the purpose of sending me to the Imperial Academy to study. This was because none of the renowned scholars and great Confucianists in Jiangnan could serve as my teacher. My master was extremely confident, believing that no talented scholar in the world could surpass me. In the 6 arts, rites, music, archery, charioteering, calligraphy, and mathematics, I was first-rate in all. Little did I expect, there was a Zhu Qingzhou in the Imperial Academy, whose literary skills were no less than mine and whose martial prowess did not fall short of mine in the slightest. It was quite a headache. What's even more detestable is, this person is narrow-minded, with a tolerance smaller than the eye of a needle, holding grudges over the slightest offense and utterly lacking in magnanimity. If I wrong him once, he will surely repay me tenfold. When I first entered the Imperial Academy, I was overly excited and accidentally stumbled. Falling right beside Zhu Qingzhou and knocking the brush out of his hand, I grimaced and struggled to my feet. only to look up and meet Zhu Qingzhou's somber eyes. My heart jolted, though I didn't understand why. I later learned that he had used that pen for 10 years. Taking it to every important exam, it held extraordinary meaning for him. Though I apologized immediately, he still intercepted me on the steps late that night, launching into a fight without a single word. "It's just a pen. The barrel is cracked and the bristles are all worn out. You're fighting me over this. Are you that desperate for money?" He was like a wolf, savage yet calm, throwing punch after punch unhurriedly and methodically. I'm no coward, and I didn't back down either. The fight eventually drew the attention of our classmates, the Imperial Academy's director, and the professors. After being punished by kneeling for a whole night, our parents were called in the next day. I panicked only then. I knew what he was concerned about. He noticed the instinctive disdain and relief I showed when I saw that pen. My master had raised me with gold, silver, pearls, and jade, fostering in me a body full of pride. Though I felt ashamed of it, the arrogance of youth refused to let me bow my head. Zhu Qingzhou took action for this reason. In front of the teacher, he remained silent, and I said nothing as well. My master, having raised me for many years, saw through it at a glance. After taking me home, he disciplined me severely with the rod, leaving marks all over my body. My master said with rare seriousness, to neither overvalue what is valued by all, nor belittle what is belittled by all. That is the way of a true gentleman. I stood with my hands at my sides, receiving the reprimand, weeping bitterly. Afterward, I apologized to him again, but the matter didn't end there. A grudge was formed from that point on. He reported me for secretly discarding the academy's meals. All the snacks I had hidden were confiscated. I had just arrived in Chang'an and wasn't used to the northern diet, and without snacks to stave off hunger, I was so famished I could barely walk steadily, let alone practice archery or horseback riding. As a result, I became the target of widespread ridicule. Of course, I wasn't about to endure this quietly. I secretly drew turtles all over his homework. I will never forget his shock when he saw that menacing turtle baring its claws. He never expected me to be so cunning. Ridiculous. I learned so much from my master. To oppose me is to seek death. Southern scholars looked up to me as their leader, while the northern scholars did not hold him in high regard. Tripping him up was effortless for me. Yet after several confrontations, our chances of winning turned out to be evenly matched. This only goes to show how sinister and terrifying this man truly is. But no matter how much they fought in private, when it came to the actual examination grounds, it was always a fair and honest contest, with no underhanded tricks. Thus, Zhu Qingzhou, who was running a high fever on the martial arts field, declared, "A gentleman does not take advantage of another's misfortune." I chuckled mischievously. Who's talking about being a gentleman? I'm still a kid. My master taught me since I was young, when someone is sick, strike to kill. I launched a flying punch at him, beating him to a pulp. Just as he was about to lose, the brat resorted to cheating, falling to the ground and pretending to be dead. He's pretending to be dead. The professor and classmates rushed forward, all spreading the rumor that Zhu Qingzhou had been beaten to death by me. I was so angry I laughed, ignoring all attempts to stop me, threw myself to the ground, and kissed Zhu Qingzhou, who had his eyes tightly closed. He finally reluctantly woke up, his face darkening, as if having a final surge of energy before death. He bit me, who was proudly exposing his act of pretending to be dead. We fought again, with no grace at all, pulling hair and scratching cheeks, battling so fiercely that we lost all sense of the world, forgetting what professors and scholars even were. In the end, we both joyfully received the punishment of kneeling for 3 days. Later, he found my weakness, the essays I had hidden away, which were slightly inferior to his, and the second place ranking on the honors list, would silently appear on my master's carriage, his desk, or, if all else failed, be posted on the main gate of the Song residence. It was impossible to guard against. Every time this happened, the gates of the Song residence would be tightly shut, and inside, chaos would ensue. I was the one fleeing in panic, while my master, whom I had deceived into believing I was the top scholar at the Imperial Academy, was the one chasing after me fiercely. If you count carefully, such days lasted no more than 2 or 3 years. Later, We passed the imperial examinations, became officials, and entered the court. The hidden daggers and concealed swords in the imperial court were nothing like the petty squabbles we had at the Imperial Academy. The Zhu family was the maternal family of Consort Zhu. Consort Zhu gave birth to the Prince of Wei, the emperor's eldest son, who was both learned in literature and skilled in martial arts, treated his subordinates with kindness and generosity, and was deeply loved by the people. Zhu Qingzhou's father was born of a concubine and was not a full sibling of Consort Zhu and her brother, but he passed away early, so Zhu Qingzhou was raised by his uncle. His surname is Zhu, and he is a supporter of the Prince of Wei faction. And I will not align myself with any faction. My master devoted all his efforts to teaching me with strict discipline, all for the purpose of ensuring that I would not yield to anyone, including His Majesty the Emperor. His Majesty the Emperor is brave and divine, but with the busy state affairs of the previous dynasty, he has little time to raise his children. Thus, as the top scholar, I was assigned more work due to my capability. Besides serving as the chief minister of the Court of Judicial Review, I also had to be the teacher for the princes and princesses. That year, I had just been an official for 2 years and was still a handsome young man of 19, not yet of age. Among my students, the eldest, Princess Yunqing, was 14 years old, while the rest of the princes and princesses were around 7 or 8 years old on average, just the age when they are as mischievous as cats and dogs, in just 1 month. I was so stressed that I started growing white hairs. I seemed to have aged several years, gradually growing into a figure that put both officials and common people at ease. No wonder Zhu Qingzhou gave me that meaningful look when the imperial edict to teach at the Chongwen Academy arrived. Bastard. He's still lingering in front of me. Sometimes I think being second place isn't so bad, at least I get to keep my hair. You bastard. I stared at his carefree back, sneered coldly. Then turned to recommend to His Majesty, your humble servant has a former classmate and current colleague whose talent is no less than mine. He wishes to contribute his modest efforts to the Imperial Library. The Emperor greatly praised this and granted permission. Zhu Qingzhou remained silent for a long time, unwilling to lift his eyelids to look at me for quite a while. I kept a straight face on the surface, but inwardly I was secretly pleased, although my own days were difficult. Seeing my sworn enemy's life was equally tough made me feel much better mentally, but the predicament had to be resolved. After being troubled for many days, I decided to throw caution to the wind. I went directly to the academy without changing clothes after leaving the Dali Temple prison. The bloodstains all over me actually intimidated several pampered students, and from then on they became much more well-behaved. 2 years later, Princess Yunqing reached the age for marriage. Your Majesty usually dotes on her the most, but when it came to choosing a husband, he set his sights on the distant Tuyuhun in the northwest. Upon hearing the news, Princess Yunqing was so emotional that she skipped my class. I searched the entire palace before finally finding Yuanqing on the ginkgo tree in Jiaoyang Hall, fighting with a fledgling over a bird's nest. Her eyes were red, her hair covered in tail feathers, and she was clinging to a branch, crying her heart out. She glanced at me. If you're here to persuade me, please leave. I'd rather die than marry. I hesitated but still spoke up. There's a big green caterpillar on you. Several of them. A moment of silence fell. A piercing scream erupted from Jiaoyang Hall, startling a flock of birds into flight. Abandoning their nests, Yunqing fell down, and I caught her with one hand, covering her mouth as I urgently whispered, sneaking into the late Empress's bedchamber. Recklessly climbing the tree His Majesty planted for her. Does Your Highness think your current situation isn't dire enough? She sat on the ground, burying her face as she sobbed quietly. I sighed, crouched down, and asked, Your Highness, do you still care about your dignity? She lifted her head and declared, I am a princess of the Celestial Dynasty. Royal dignity is more important than life itself. How could I not care? If I could help you avoid marrying far away. She paused. What is face worth, after all? Yunqing tugged at my sleeve to wipe her tears, sobbing, Teacher, in Father Emperor's heart, there is only the late Empress Consort and Princess Mingchuan, none of us siblings at all. Teacher, I've long known Father Emperor doesn't love me. I pulled my sleeve away in disgust. patting her shoulder to comfort her. "What does it matter? Your father doesn't love me either." She stared at me for a long time, then rolled her eyes and said, "Sir, are you out of your mind? I submitted a memorial stating that the two Yuhan were nomadic barbarians, uncivilized and uneducated. Even if His Majesty were to bestow a princess in marriage, they would likely fail to grasp the imperial favor and instead become arrogant and self-important." Swelling with pride, His Majesty scolded me harshly. "I suppose I really do have some issues, otherwise, why bother meddling in this idle matter?" Even Zhu Qingju couldn't figure it out. He clearly hadn't been scheming recently, so why was I still digging my own grave and jumping in? He frowned and stopped me. "Are you out of your mind?" Then, as if suddenly realizing something, he said, "No, that's not right. You must have some other scheme. What are you planning to do to me this time?" I stopped in my tracks, smiled wordlessly, circled around him, looked him up and down, and said with a sidelong glance, "Do you have any shame?" His face instantly turned a riot of colors, quite a sight to behold. After returning home, I ordered someone to send a message to the merchants in the northwest of our household, instructing them to secretly spread the rumor that the princess to be married off was ugly and unreasonable, with a violent temper, and that no one in Great Xia wanted to marry her, which was why the emperor was marrying his daughter off to a foreign land. The Tu-Yuhan Khan, still young and proud, with a preference for strong liquor and beautiful women, was provoked by this and actually made wild boasts, declaring that the Great Xia emperor looked down on him and refusing to marry the princess. His Majesty was furious and dispatched troops to the northwest. Yunqing was overjoyed and personally went to the kitchen to make a whole box of pastries for me. For the two of us, I gave half of them to Zhu Qingju. He looked at me with a complicated expression. "You didn't poison these, did you?" "I'm losing my patience. The princess's token of gratitude, take it or leave it." The Song family excelled in business, with extensive connections but relatively weak political influence. The matter was handled so efficiently because Zhu Qingju had secretly assisted behind the scenes. He took it and said coldly, "Your attempt to curry favor with the princess is merely to win over General Shui, her maternal grandfather. I won't let you succeed." I stared at him for a long time, until he took a step back and bristled with vigilance, asking, "What are you trying to do?" I smiled and said, "You saved the beauty, and the princess already knows. There's no need to be modest, and even less need to deceive yourself. Brother Zhu, by my reckoning, your good days are about to begin." I laughed heartily and walked away. Zhu Qingju chased after me, cursing, "Song Nanji, you southern barbarian scoundrel." My master was also puzzled. "Why help that man's daughter?" I yawned. A teacher's duty is to transmit wisdom, impart knowledge, and resolve doubts. "Master," I explained, "I've never experienced any of these three senses of fulfillment with the princess. It's such a failure. I refuse to accept this. I can't let her go." Master frowned. "You'll accept it when she takes a liking to you." I smiled confidently. "I've already found a scapegoat." My master disapproved and went on and on. "All of Li's children take after their father. A man like him falls in love with every new face he sees. One is never enough. Two make a pair. Here we go again." My master leaped up from his reclining chair, his expression indignant, eyes blazing with unrelenting resentment. Back in the day, he had one wise scholar on his left and another beloved minister on his right, eager to recruit every fortune-teller under the overpass into his service. Yet, he singled me out for endless nitpicking. Saying I was narrow-minded and unfit for important tasks, he said I was narrow-minded. I turned over, covered my ears, and closed my eyes to sleep. All these years, my ears have grown calluses from all the nagging. Though I wasn't confident enough to be favored by the princess, I still let myself go for a while. And Zhu Qingju did the same. Not long after, we had a spectacular, unprecedented fight right in the imperial court. The epidemic in Lu County struck with ferocious intensity. Zhu Qingju proposed a swift and decisive solution: immediately seal the doors and burn the corpses, containing the plague within the city walls. I strongly opposed this, believing the measure to be excessively cruel. Besides, we didn't have enough firewood and would have to borrow from the neighboring county. But that county was suffering a famine with no harvest to speak of. and swarms of refugees were already on the roads, leaving them unable to tend to their own troubles. So I proposed a different approach: provide relief through work, gather the refugees to move the corpses beyond the border, offering a hidden surprise to the restless neighboring tribes. Perhaps we could subdue the enemy without even fighting. 3 benefits at once, and it saved firewood, too. The two of us went back and forth, unable to out-talk each other, and eventually ended up in a physical altercation, which concluded with my wig being snatched off after the court session ended. We were kept behind by His Majesty. He sat on the throne, lost in thought for a long while, and then said, "Having both of you, my esteemed ministers, as talents in my court is truly my." I quickly knelt before Zhu Qingju to express my gratitude. "Thank you for your Majesty's appreciation." Xiaohu bot prevents document piracy. For bookfinding bots, choose Xiaohu, stable, reliable, and hassle-free. Zhu Qingju shot me a glance, his meaning clear as day, trying to show off, not to be outdone. He added, "Your Majesty flatters me. I shall devote myself entirely to my duties until my last breath." The sovereign fell silent for a moment, then let out a long sigh and said, "Truly, this is my retribution." His Majesty sneered coldly, "The two of you, with such unscrupulous and ruthless schemes, make me feel as if I'm seeing the shadow of an old acquaintance. Back then, I drove him away, but never expected to face the same situation again today. It must be his curse upon me." We were as silent as cicadas in winter, not daring to respond. After kneeling for a long time, just when I thought I would meet my end here today, His Majesty finally showed mercy. "Forget it. From now on, be cautious with your words and actions. You may leave." Staggering out of the palace hall, I glanced back one last time. His Majesty was leaning on the dragon throne, lost in thought with his eyes lowered, as if reminiscing about something. After repairing Zhu Qingzhou's grave, I felt much better. No matter how chaotic the court affairs were, they couldn't disturb my peaceful sanctuary where I could pour out my thoughts and keep worries from entering my heart. I thought I could continue living in such balance. Yet the world is full of absurdities. Before His Majesty ascended the throne as the King of Hanzhong, on the verge of unifying the realm, he went north to battle the Qiong tribe. Before leaving, he entrusted the capital of Linen to his wife, the late Empress Zhao Yuan, to oversee. Unexpectedly, His Majesty's elder brother, the Prince of Huayan, seized the opportunity to capture the city and attempted to forcibly take his brother's wife, whom he had long coveted. To protect the lives of the city's inhabitants, Empress Zhao Yuan endured the humiliation and agreed, to further gain his trust. Under the Prince of Huayan's coercion, she was forced to kill her own daughter with her own hands. Later, His Majesty counterattacked and returned to the city, turning the tide. The Prince of Huayan was executed, while Empress Zhao Yuan and the people in the city were rescued. Amidst the city's turmoil and suffering, only the princess lost her life. She was 8 years old that year. His Majesty did not care whether Empress Zhao Yuan had lost her chastity. Upon ascending the throne, he first enfeoffed her as the empress, making her a model of virtue for the nation. However, Empress Zhao Yuan, grieving the loss of her beloved daughter, remained melancholic and sorrowful all day long. The emperor and empress never found Princess Mingchuan's body. So they refused to believe their beloved daughter was dead and issued an order to search for the princess throughout the land. After the empress passed away, the empress still did not give up the search for the princess, expending vast resources and manpower, burdening the people and draining the treasury. Every year, officials of provinces, commanderies, and counties who failed to provide any clues were reprimanded by the emperor, causing widespread anxiety and fear among them. However, everyone in the city had seen clearly that Empress Zhao Yuan's sword had pierced the princess's chest, and her body had been thrown into a mass grave. That night, heavy rain poured down, and given the princess's young age, there was absolutely no chance she could have survived. His Majesty's action was, on one hand, to comfort the empress, and on the other, to prevent his beloved wife from bearing the infamous reputation of killing her own daughter. At the same time, it served as a sharp tool to restrain the local powers and the officials. However, money was truly spent, and manpower was genuinely wasted. Inside and outside the palace, He forbade any grave, memorial tablet, or incense offering for Princess Mingchuan. If there truly are wandering souls in this world, Princess Mingchuan will find no peace in the afterlife, unable to pass on in tranquility. I can't take it anymore. How could such an action befit a wise and virtuous ruler? I submitted a memorial to offer my counsel, only to be scolded once again. His Majesty summoned me to the imperial study, suppressing his anger, and ordered me to compose a eulogy for Empress Zhao Yuan. I knew he wanted me to atone for my mistakes by performing meritorious service. I softly declined. As soon as the words fell, the hall instantly turned bleak. The palace servants knelt trembling across the room, their breathing suppressed with great effort. His Majesty let out a cold laugh. I boldly met his gaze, only to find no warmth left in his eyes. Yet that day, I simply wanted to be willful for once. I want to be willful just this once. His gaze lingered on me for a long time, but in the end, he did not use the disciplinary rod. Instead, he had me thrown out the door and ordered me to kneel in punishment on the steps. Time felt exceptionally long. Back in the Imperial Academy, whenever I was punished, the instructor would often turn a blind eye. My classmates and friends would frequently jump through the window to bring me tea and snacks, and I didn't even have to attend class. It's still better to be in school. I knelt until after midnight, when a light rain began to fall, and the candlelight in the imperial study remained lit throughout the night. After what felt like an eternity, the Prince of Wei arrived holding an umbrella. He entered and then came out again. Standing before me, he let out a soft sigh and said with pity, "Minister Song, why must you go to such lengths? Please rise, His Majesty has pardoned you." He handed me a pot of hot soup, but I didn't take it. After bowing in thanks, I forced myself to steady my steps and walked away, but the palace gate hadn't opened yet, so I could only squat by the entrance waiting, regretting not taking that hot soup. Why did I have to put on such an act? After finally waiting until I could leave the palace, there wasn't a single person there to meet me. I understand. My master is also angry with me. Everyone is angry. Fine, I'm angry too. Without going home, I went straight to Qingwu Mountain to pay respects at Zhu Qingzhou's grave. I never thought that misfortunes never come singly. This time, I was done for. After cursing, I looked up and saw Zhu Qingzhou standing right beside me. After exchanging a few polite words, I turned and ran, but my knees were too weak. Zhu Qingzhou grabbed me by the collar, his expression complicated. "Song Nanji, why are you always making such a fuss?" I never thought there would come a day when I could actually sit and drink with Zhu Qingzhou face to face. Oh, no, there was one time, back when we were still studying at the Imperial Academy, that year when foreign envoys came to pay tribute. The academy hosted many foreign students. Due to differences in language and customs, we lived in separate courtyards, each keeping to our own without interfering. However, the petty-minded Japanese harbored dark intentions and often played underhanded tricks. Our grievances against them ran deep, so we set aside our internal conflicts and gave them a thorough lesson. Just as things had calmed down, Zhu Qingzhou accused me of releasing a small green snake to bite him. The academy punished me by making me stand, and my parents were summoned. Heaven is my witness that little green snake had been placed in his bedroom last year. It was only because the snake was hibernating during the winter that it hadn't bitten him earlier. It took action when spring arrived. I had long forgotten. The master was hastily summoned again, raising his hand to strike, gritting his teeth and saying, "Releasing snakes to bite people. Do you still remember you're a scholar?" I shrank my neck back. "I'm not that pure." The master was taken aback. "What?" I said. "I am accomplished in both literary and martial arts." "Ha!" My master sneered. "You little rascal, either finish him off properly. Don't keep playing these petty tricks." I hung my head dejectedly. That was just too ruthless. Before my master could finish listing all the venomous snake species, a classmate rushed in anxiously. "Nanji, Qingzhou and the others have started a fight with those foreigners." I was shocked and hurriedly told my master, "Master, please stand in for me for a while." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to cause some trouble." By the time I arrived at the scene, the fight was almost over. Both sides were injured, but the other side was clearly worse off. Most of their faces were swollen like pig heads. unrecognizable even to their own mothers. It's clearly the work of Zhu Qingju. His methods are the most ruthless. Not to be outdone, I took advantage of the chaos and landed a couple more kicks. The brawl caused too much of a stir, and foreign envoys came demanding an explanation. The academy professor stood in front of us, fiercely debating the crowd of scholars. Nonsense! How could the students of our great Xia Imperial Academy engage in such disgraceful behavior? You have internal conflicts and can't handle your own violent disputes, so you try to shift the blame onto my well-behaved and respectful students. Do you think Great Xia has no one left to stand up for them? You scoundrels! What did you say? Song Nanji and Zhu Qingju are the most learned and virtuous students in our Imperial Academy. Everyone in the Imperial Academy can testify to that. Shameless scoundrel, how dare you slander the future pillars of our great Xia? Your intentions are utterly despicable. The other side, unable to retort and lacking evidence, had no choice but to let the matter drop, although we were later severely disciplined by the Academy director. That day remains the most united and joyful one for all of us classmates. That evening, we sneaked out of the Imperial College to drink. The war had ended, and Zhu Qingju and I were still sworn enemies. But that night, amidst the crowd, we shared a distant toast. Just like today, I had caught a chill. But after several cups of wine, my body gradually warmed up. Zhu Qingju still wore a dark expression. So concerned about my funeral arrangements. How very generous of you, Brother Song. I waved my hand. It's nothing, nothing. After a moment of mutual silence, Zhu Qingju sighed. Why must you argue with His Majesty? I stared at him and smiled. If you didn't think this matter was improper, you wouldn't have secretly built a cenotaph for Princess Mingchuan. He was so shocked he held his breath, and after a long while, he said, How do you know? The next moment, he said in disbelief, You followed me. I rolled my eyes at him. Didn't you follow me today? We stared at each other, tension thick in the air. It wasn't until the waiter brought another pot of wine that I broke the silence first. I haven't told anyone. I'm just curious. While everyone in the world dares not say the princess is dead, how do you have the nerve to erect a tomb for her right under the emperor's nose? Zhu Qingju lowered his gaze, his voice tinged with sorrow. If she isn't dead, consider it sending her paper money in advance. If she is dead, may it protect her from suffering too much in the underworld. I was somewhat moved and sighed. You're worrying for nothing. Even if the princess has truly passed away, she would be reborn in paradise. What use would she have for your paper money? He gave me a strange look. Impossible. She was wicked from a young age. And when she dies, she's definitely going to hell. Her days won't be easy. My actions are still very necessary. What you're doing is just unnecessary. Heh. I tightened my grip on the cup. Zhu Qingju said warily, What's wrong with you? I wasn't talking about you. His words choked me up, and feeling frustrated, I grabbed the wine pot and started drinking straight from it. If Zhu Qingju comes to snatch it, I'll drink even more fiercely. I think I'm drunk. He wasn't much more sober either, being quite the chatterbox. Song Nanji, why have I never been able to see you clearly? What exactly do you want? Why are you so different? I punched him, grabbed his collar, and roared, Yes, I'm different. I'm just not like you. He was taken aback for a moment, then laughed, speaking as if to soothe. Yes, you are loyal to the sovereign and love your country. You are upright and incorruptible. You are pragmatic for the people. You have no selfish motives. You are nobler and purer than all of us. You are the top scholar, and we are mere mortals. I glared at him fiercely, gave him a hard shove, but didn't manage to do much to him. Instead, I ended up falling back into the chair, hurting myself. My mind was in a haze, and my eyes felt sore. I only remember mumbling repeatedly, I'm just different from you all. I've been different from the start. What could a bunch of men possibly understand? I am indeed different. My top scholar title is worth far more than theirs, because I am one who should not have appeared in the academy, unworthy of sitting alongside men to discuss state affairs. I am a woman, disguised as a man. I entered the Imperial College at 14, achieved the top rank in the Imperial examinations at 16, and by 20, I had risen to the position of Vice Minister of the Court of Judicial Review. In 5 years of service, not a single wrongful, false, or unjust case has passed through my hands. earning me the deep affection of the people. The auntie selling wontons on Chang'an Street always saves a bowl for me as a late-night snack. I'm just different from them, after a night of heavy drinking. To thank Zhu Qingju for sending me home, I personally made a pen for him. It was also an apology I owed him for many years. He held it in his hand, examining it for a long time, then looked up at me in astonishment. I didn't wait for him to speak before turning to leave. Zhu Qingju and I could be considered childhood sweethearts. When my father was still the Prince of Hanzhong, his parents were two of my father's most capable generals, constantly away on military campaigns. While my mother was stabilizing the rear for my father in Linen City, I spent my time playing with a group of younger siblings from the families of court officials. When Zhu Qingju was young, he had a solitary personality, and none of the Zhu family children liked him. The younger brother born to consort Zhu, who is now Prince Wei Li Zheng, often mentioned to me, intentionally or unintentionally, that his cousin Qingju had accidentally hurt him again, as the eldest sister. It was only natural for me to protect my brother, so I often went looking for trouble with Zhu Qingju. He was like a little wolf cub, unafraid of my status as a princess, and each time he would bare his fangs at me, the more he acted like that, the more I wanted to bully him. Later, when his parents died in battle, my mother told me to take good care of him and not bully him anymore. I agreed verbally, but I couldn't resist the sight of my younger brother's reddened eyes time and again, so the long whip at my waist lashed against his body again and again. He always looked at me silently and calmly, but his fists were clenched, and his eyes were bloodshot. I never understood why he harbored such hatred for everyone. Although his parents died early, Marshal Zhu treated him as his own son, and his younger siblings respected him. Why did he despise everyone so much? Until one day, I secretly climbed over the wall into the Zhu residence. It was noon, and the entire Zhu family was having a meal, with only one person missing from the table. Feeling puzzled, I searched the entire mansion and arrived outside a secluded courtyard, where I heard continuous, low, deep growls. My heart jolted. Having often accompanied my father on hunts, I immediately recognized it, the sound of a wild wolf. My hands trembled as I pushed the door open, and the sight before me sent a chill straight to my bones. Zhu Qingju was locked in the same cage as a wolf, his body already covered in wounds. I grabbed a bow and arrow from the nearby rack and aimed it at the wolf's head, but for some reason, Zhu Qingju closed his eyes as if he had given up all resistance. The arrow failed to kill the wolf, so I dragged the blade, almost as heavy as myself, closer and finished it off with a few more strikes. I hacked through the lock on the cage. Zhu Qingju was already on the brink of death, my body still trembling. I slowly reached out a finger to check if he was breathing, but he suddenly opened his eyes and bit down hard on my hand. I didn't make a sound. Only when he lost his strength and released me did I realize I was crying. Zhu Qingju, I'm sorry. I will tell my mother exactly what happened today and have her seek justice for you. If you've done something wrong, you should make amends. The only thing I have on me is a pen blade I made for my father. It hasn't been fully polished yet, but it's fully functional. One end is a pen, and the other conceals a sharp blade. Take it for self-defense for now. I hurriedly stood up, wanting to go find my mother to complain, but Zhu Qingju suddenly spoke. However, his throat seemed injured, and I couldn't hear him clearly. Thinking back, what he probably said at the time was, "Run." On my way back to the palace, I noticed the streets were unusually quiet, and a vague sense of unease crept over me, so I immediately quickened my pace. Just as I had crawled through the dog hole into the palace wall, I was struck from behind, and everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, it was already late at night. I had just woken up when my mother ordered my mouth to be gagged and my body to be tied up. My mother stood in the hall with a sword in hand. I looked around and saw that my uncle had brought soldiers to firmly secure the palace. My mother said, "Minga, close your eyes, it will be over soon." The aunt who had taken care of me since childhood rushed to my side, crying bitterly, "Princess, she is your daughter." My mother's gaze was unprecedentedly cold. From the whispers around me, I roughly understood my predicament. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. "Mother, how could you know I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice for the sake of the entire city's people? I am the daughter of the king and my mother, Though young in age, I still understand greater righteousness. Why are you gagging my mouth and binding my body? I won't hide, nor will I run away, for such a deed that will go down in history. Shouldn't I leave a few words behind? Wouldn't it be a great loss otherwise? Oh, right, I still have to lodge a complaint. The Zhu family mistreated Zhu Qingzhu. And I haven't yet told my mother to seek justice for him, but I had no chance. I could only watch helplessly as my mother's sword pierced my chest. Later, the night rain poured down, and I was thrown into the mass grave again. But I did not die. The strategist who had been driven away by my father came through the rain. He dug me out from among the many corpses and treated my illness. It took a full year before I could get out of bed, fearing he might hold a grudge against me because of my father. I pretended to have lost my memory. The first words I spoke upon waking were to call him Father. He froze, the gloom in his eyes instantly melting away. Of course, he didn't dare to actually become my father, he only took me as his disciple. But I guessed right, he resented my father deeply. Every day, he would grit his teeth and tell me earnestly that my father's killer was the Prince of Hanzhong, and that I must grow up and take revenge on him. Each time, I would answer crisply, "Yes, master. I will definitely kill him and avenge my father." My master was very satisfied, but I never expected that his method of revenge would be to groom me to become a pillar of the great Xia dynasty. I was very confused. So when should I start the rebellion? Back then, when the Prince of Huayan successfully entered the city, there must have been someone inside assisting him. I have been desperately seeking evidence these past few years, and while I have some leads, they are not many. I suspect it was Consort Zhu and the Zhu family. After all, her son is quite the actor, and she stands to gain the most from it. I know that Zhu Qingzhu also suspects the cause of his parents' deaths and has been investigating in secret. After exhausting all leads outside the palace, I arranged for him to enter the Chongwen Academy as a tutor so he could search for evidence inside the palace. It's about time to see some results, but let's put that aside for now. I recently took on a major case. A couple and their son came from Daming County in Hebei, the fiefdom of the Prince of Wei, to the capital to file a lawsuit. They claimed their daughter had been taken by a high-ranking noble of the court. They were fortunate not to have to go directly to the court, but instead encountered me first at Auntie Liu's wonton stall on Chang'an Street. For commoners to accuse a prince is no ordinary matter and cannot be made public. I temporarily settled them at the Song family's villa and secretly sent people to investigate in the Hebei region. After the investigation, I remained unsettled for a long time. In recent years, the officials of Hebei Prefecture have not only been increasing taxes and imposing forced labor under the pretext of searching for Princess Mingchuan, but they have also been secretly abducting women who resemble the princess's portrait for unknown purposes. The portrait of the princess was created by painters based on the likeness of Empress Zhaoyuan and the princess's childhood image, and it is widely known throughout the land. Could it be that they are trying to find someone to impersonate me? At first, that was what I thought, until the covert guard stammered, finding it difficult to speak, "Young master. Those women have all been sent to Prince Wei's private residence in his fiefdom." I fell silent. That night, I let my hair down and studied myself in the mirror for a long time. In truth, aside from the eyes being 70% similar, the rest of the portrait didn't resemble me at all. This was also the reason I had been able to hide so well all these years. I let out a soft sigh. My younger brother, since he was little, always liked to follow me around. At first, I found him annoying. But Consort Zhu was gentle, and he was so adorable that, over time, I let my guard down. I believed everything he said. When he told me that our father didn't like him enough, I felt sorry for him and believed it. When he said Zhu Qingzhu bullied him, I believed that too. How could a child lie? I was such a fool. We share the same blood. If I'm so good at deceiving, how could he be completely harmless? But my brother should never, ever have lied to his sister. If you're wrong, you deserve to be punished. A sister disciplining her brother is only right and proper. What's more, we're not just siblings, we're also political rivals. I was expressionless, applying makeup in front of the mirror. Li Zheng had been coveting me for quite some time. At first, I thought he wanted to win me over, but later I felt he had taken a fancy to me. Several times I wanted to interrupt His Majesty, who was intently scolding me, and tell him, "Your son is a cut-sleeve." But I didn't have the courage. I temporarily suppressed the case of the prince abducting common women, fearing I would be silenced immediately if it came to light. However, the case of officials in Hebei prefectures using Princess Mingchuan as an excuse to impose unauthorized taxes on the people could still be reported to the emperor. The emperor was indeed furious that his beloved daughter was being exploited in such a manner, and dispatched the censorate, Ministry of Justice, and Court of Judicial Review for a joint investigation. As the youngest official in the Court of Judicial Review, I was sent along to Hebei prefecture to investigate the case. But before I could even eat the donkey meat burger, I was thrown into a sack, knocked out, and taken away. In recent years, with the heavy workload of government affairs, my time for martial arts practice has been severely compressed, and my alertness is not as sharp as it was in my childhood. When I woke up, the room was dimly lit. I strained my eyes to see and suddenly recognized him. "Your Highness, the Prince of Wei." Li Zhang raised his head, a smile curling at the corners of his eyes. "Lord Song, why aren't you panicking?" I smiled. He stood up and sighed with satisfaction. "Alike, truly alike, I've met so many people. But only your aura resembles hers the most." I asked, "So what does your Highness intend to do with me now?" He gently twirled the prayer beads in his hand. "I have already arranged for a replica of you, Lord Song, to follow those fools from the censorate and Ministry of Justice in their investigation. You, my dear minister, shall remain here and accompany me for the rest of your life." I stretched my sore limbs and shook my head with a sigh. "Your Highness, Prince of Wei, does His Majesty and the imperial consort, the officials and the common people, know of the despicable thoughts in your heart?" He laughed heartily. "I am the eldest son of the emperor. My birth mother is the honored imperial consort who manages the affairs of the inner court, who is more qualified than I to inherit the throne. Those who speak against me shall be executed." I sneered disdainfully. "If you were to become the ruler of the people, the nation would be in grave danger." He tilted his head slightly and said with a strange tone, "At a time like this, are you still worrying about state affairs and the people's livelihood?" I straightened my clothes, sat upright in the Grand Master's chair, and said to him in a deep voice, "Who told you that only the censorate and the Ministry of Justice accompanied me here?" A flicker of confusion crossed his face. I heard the sudden rustling wind outside the window and smiled faintly, saying, "Minister of War Zhu Qingju has also secretly followed with the Zhu family army. By now, they have probably surrounded Prince Wei's villa." His pupils trembled violently as he immediately looked toward the window. The next moment, the room's door was forcefully kicked open. Before Prince Wei could even take me hostage, a long sword was already pressed against his neck. Such is the descendant of General Zhu. Zhu Qingju was half covered in blood and half in frost, his face cold and stern. Years of struggling to survive in the mud had transformed him from a stubborn young wolf into a qualified hunter. Li Zheng had always been afraid of him, his voice trembling slightly. "Cousin, we share the same bloodline, our fates are intertwined." Zhu Qingju wore a grim expression, not even lifting his eyelids. "I am deeply ashamed of it." With a wave of his hand, the Zhu family army behind him swiftly tied the man up and took him away. The crisis was resolved in a couple of moves. Zhu Qingju turned his face away. "Let's go." I closed the door before he could, then pressed my hand against his chest. He widened his eyes in surprise. "What are you doing?" I looked at him steadily. "I haven't thanked you yet." His throat moved slightly as he finally lowered his head, cupping his hands in a salute. "I was merely fulfilling my duty as a subject, and dare not claim any credit." I stared at his thick, dark hair, and an inexplicable anger rose within me. I let out a cold laugh. "Zhu Qingju, since you've recognized me, why haven't you begged for forgiveness?" He let out a soft, derisive snort. Yet his feet took 2 steps back. With my hands clasped behind my back, I closed in on him, lifting my head to stare intently at his eyes, which refused to meet mine. "Your first crime. For years, you've opposed me at every turn, pressing me relentlessly. This is disloyalty. Your second crime. You took it upon yourself to build me a tomb and even cursed me to hell. This is disrespect. Your third crime. Though you clearly knew my identity just now, you refused to acknowledge me. This is unfriendliness." His eyelashes fluttered lightly, his breathing gradually grew heavier, and his body stiffened and tensed up severely. I curled my lips into a cold smile and said sharply, "Kneel down." He abruptly raised his head. Outside the door, the wind howled desolately. We stared at each other, time frozen. And I don't know how long passed before his rigid body slowly moved. This time, however, he did not retreat. Instead, he took 2 steps forward, knelt on one knee, and looked up at me. In that instant, the sky seemed lighter, the earth more distant. Through the man before me, I saw the wounded child locked in a cage and said softly, "Back then, I was going to return to the palace to complain to my mother. Unfortunately, before I could speak those words, I died." The words were heavy, tragic. I watched helplessly as sorrow solidified in his eyes, turning into a mist of ice. I averted my gaze. "Zhu Qingju, I'm sorry. In the end, I've wronged you more." A pained sob quietly spread through the air. He suddenly grabbed my hand, his eyes blazing like wildfire. "Then what will your highness use to repay me?" "I don't speak." "Hold on a moment." I broke free and slowly moved this hand up his neck, inch by inch, just as I pinched his chin. He simultaneously grasped my wrist, his voice suddenly turned hoarse. "Your highness, I am truly a man." I bent down, leaning close to him. "What a coincidence. I am truly a woman." The autumn scenery was just perfect at this moment. Let the storm rage and the downpour never cease. The evidence of King Wei Li Zheng's forcible seizure of common women and kidnapping of imperial officials is irrefutable, his crimes glaringly evident, leaving no room for denial. The emperor, in his fury, stripped him of his royal status and reduced him to a commoner, while ordering a thorough investigation of the entire Zhou residence. The emperor had long been displeased with King Wei and consort Zhu's collusion with outside officials and formation of cliques for personal gain, while the Zhou family's unruly conduct and arrogant tyranny had long drawn the resentment of court ministers. The crimes uncovered are too numerous to record at this moment. Zhu Qingju presented evidence that the Zhou family, together with consort Zhu, had framed General Zhu and his wife leading to their deaths, and colluded with the Prince of Huayan to enter Linen City. As the matter involved Empress Zhaoyuan and Princess Mingchuan, the entire court trembled with fear. The emperor was so enraged that he vomited a mouthful of blood on the spot. On that very day, an order was issued to execute consort Zhu by hanging, exile the Prince of Wei, and behead the entire family branch of Zhu Qingzhou's uncle. The heavy rain fell for half a month, yet it failed to wash away the bloodstains left at the execution ground. Some people are equally detestable, whether alive or dead. On the day of the execution, Zhu Qingju went to offer incense to his parents. I also picked a handful of chrysanthemums myself and placed them before the tomb of General Zhu and his wife. After the task was done, we remained silent for a long while, until the sun set. I said, "How about we demolish our own graves? It feels a bit inauspicious." But Zhu Qingju replied, "Let it be. In case we end up with no intact bodies in the future, at least we'll have graves to rely on. Can't you hope for something better?" "How much better could it be? For example, 100 years from now, you'll be buried with me in the Imperial Mausoleum." "Just an Imperial Mausoleum." "What? The Imperial Mausoleum?" His Majesty fell seriously ill because of this matter and moved to the royal villa to recuperate just as winter began. "This is a good opportunity." I took 3 days off to settle the upcoming matters. My master has been unusually calm lately, though not in high spirits. On the eve of the uprising, I played a game of chess with my master. The master sighed deeply and said, "It's about to snow, and it's time to bring this to an end." I understood immediately. "Understood," he nodded. On the 6th day of the winter month in the 13th year of Yongxi, the handles of the east and west city gates of Chang'an were replaced by the Zhu family army. I led the Song family's death warriors to secretly surround the royal villa. The night was deep and quiet, without a sound, outside the Qiang Palace. I took a moment to steady my breath before pushing the palace gate open and stepping inside, but before I could reach the main hall, some careless fool suddenly tossed a bundle over the high wall beside me. It gave me such a fright. I was in the middle of a rebellion. After all, Soon, a head appeared over the wall, our eyes met, and I was utterly shocked. Master. The master hurriedly jumped inside the wall. I quickly went up to him. Why have you come in person? The master shot me a glare, his breath a bit unsteady. Nonsense. How could I find someone else to do this kind of thing? Embarrassed. I rubbed my head and smiled apologetically. You're right. But as soon as I raised my hand, the short sword in my sleeve slipped out. I had just withdrawn my hand when I looked up and saw my master's face had turned deathly pale. His lips trembled slightly as he spoke in a terrified tone. What are you doing here? I replied blankly. Rebelling, aren't you? He stared at me wide-eyed, speechless, looking at me in disbelief. I realized belatedly, oh, you're right, so what are you here for? He took a few moments to catch his breath, then gritted his teeth and stomped his foot, saying, to visit the sick, me. The silence around us grew even deeper. Finally, I waved my hand dismissively and turned to face the palace gate. No worries, it's about the same. If it really doesn't work out, you can always visit me after I finish the rebellion. Master clutched his chest, his trembling finger pointing at me. Rebellion? You're rebelling against him. Your father once led 800 men to utterly defeat 80,000 enemy troops, and you dare rebel against him. Have you lost your mind? I halted my steps, tilting my head with a half-smile as I asked him, my father. The master's eyes flickered, avoiding my gaze as he grabbed my arm and whispered urgently, get out of here, quickly, if we don't leave now, it'll be too late. But it seemed it was already too late. The hall doors slowly swung open, and His Majesty, draped in a goose-feather cloak, strode out with a face as cold as water. Without even glancing at me, he smiled at my flustered master. I, long time no see. My master, who had been struggling with me, stood solemnly in sorrowful silence, so spineless, with just one sentence from him. My master's eyes welled up with tears. I pursed my lips, but suddenly, a great force struck me, catching me off guard and sending me to my knees. By the time I realized what had happened, even the emperor's smiling face had turned wrathful. He scolded lightly, you unfilial, rebellious daughter. My master roared, stepping in front of me. You bastard, how dare you strike? The emperor said. Because she is my daughter. My master was horrified. You knew all along. The emperor. I knew, master. When did you find out? His Majesty turned his back, snorting coldly. From the moment she proposed that unscrupulous policy for the Luzhu County plague, which bore your distinct style, I had your entire Song family investigated from top to bottom. Only then did I realize that the esteemed strategist Yuetzi, who once served as my top advisor, was actually the head of the Song family from Jiangnan. No wonder you always managed to solve the money shortage back then. And no wonder the Song family refused to lend me money for provisions after I drove you away. My master trembled slightly, wiping his eyes with his long sleeve as he firmly stood in front of me. You were the one who drove me away first. All I did was suggest you kill your elder brother early, and you drove me away. You even said I was narrow-minded and lacked tolerance. I hate you to death. You say I'm narrow-minded. Fine. Now your eldest son is dead. Your remaining children are useless. Only Mingchuan is capable of taking on great responsibilities. I've cultivated the crown prince for you. Dare you appoint her as the crown princess? You claim to be magnanimous. Show me just how magnanimous you are. The emperor sneered coldly. Crown prince? That reckless fool. My master stepped forward, his voice hoarse with desperation. No, she was too young back then. Too severely injured, she lost her memory. It was I who told her you were her father's murderer. She didn't know I deceived her. She knew. The emperor interrupted him coldly. Amnesia, just like how I once lured you into my service by calling you the world's wisest man. She was likely pretending to have amnesia from the very beginning. Let me guess, the first thing she said upon waking was to call you father. Wasn't she? My child, I understand her. I shuddered for no reason. My master also shuddered. I looked at his back and could tell he was trying hard to suppress the violent heaving in his chest, but he didn't turn around, and his tone remained firm. I don't need to hear this, it's not important. I know the child I raised well, and today she just wanted to play a prank on you. His Majesty remained silent. Just as the awkward silence fell, The palace doors were suddenly kicked open with a loud crash, setting aside the dead soldiers. The three of us, two kneeling and one standing, turned our heads in unison. There stood Zhu Qingju, clad in armor and holding a blade, frozen in place for a long moment, finally grasping the situation. He stepped forward silently and knelt. "Your servant is late to rescue your majesty. I beg for your forgiveness." I whipped my head back around. "Zhu Qingju, you son of a bitch." His majesty sneered. "Save the carriage. Whose carriage are you saving?" Zhu Qingju paused, cleared his throat lightly, and said, "The royal carriage." His majesty sighed. "Your father's. How did your father end up with a son like you? Truly, each generation is worse than the last." He sighed again, pushed my master aside, and said to me, "Look up." I looked up at him, frowning, his tone helpless. "Over these years, I have witnessed all the hard work you have dedicated to the nation. I would believe anyone else capable of rebellion, but never you. You could never bear to see the people suffer. So I have some idea of what you are doing today, but just because I understand doesn't mean the rest of the world will. The state has its laws." My master suddenly cried out, his voice choked with tears. "My lord." His majesty paused for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a hint of lightness. "A minister rebelling against the emperor is a matter of state, but a daughter rebelling against her father is a family matter. You decide for yourself." I stared at him intently, and after a long while, I lowered my head, tugged at his sleeve, and whispered softly, "Daddy." He stiffened for a moment, then turned away and said, "Let's end today's matter here. Lessie, come with me." Before following him, my master glared at me fiercely and even raised his hand to pat my head, until the palace doors closed and I collapsed to the ground. I was startled to realize I was drenched in cold sweat. Zhu Qingju was the same, repeating his old refrain, "Your Highness, why do you always stir up trouble for no reason?" I punched him. "Didn't we agree to split up? What are you doing here?" He looked somewhat embarrassed. "The city gates weren't held, and those who entered the imperial city never returned." I felt something was wrong, so I rushed back to save you. I glared at him, worthless. The next day, during the imperial court session, the emperor announced shocking news. Song Nanji, the deputy minister of the Court of Judicial Review, was actually a woman disguised as a man. The court was in an uproar. Song Nanji had offended many people with her sharp tongue over the years, and now numerous officials were eagerly seizing the opportunity, accusing her of deceiving the emperor, making a mockery of his majesty, and committing a crime punishable by death. Of course, there were also many people who defended her. For example, the former Imperial Academy instructor, now also serving as the censor. "Your Majesty, do not listen to their jealous words. Although Lord Song is a woman, she has been diligent and responsible in her official duties all these years, never handling a single wrongful case. To this day, Aunt Liu at the west entrance of Chang'an Street still refuses to accept payment for a bowl of wontons from her." A student beside him anxiously tugged at his sleeve. "Teacher, you don't have to say everything. This isn't the time for your lectures." The censor continued, "Your Majesty, please see clearly. Considering that Lord Song deceived the monarch but never deceived the people, please show leniency in your judgment." When everyone had almost finished expressing their opinions, the emperor calmly scanned the crowd and announced another shocking news. "Song Nanji is none other than my long-lost Princess Mingchuan." After saying this, he leisurely stood up and left the court. The court fell into a deathly silence. The dozen or so people who had just declared that Song Nanji should be executed turned as pale as sheets, collapsing like a pile of mud, unable to be propped up even with support. They all muttered under their breath, "It's over." Song Nanji's former classmates were also stunned, but after a moment, they began to dance and prance about, so overjoyed they could have run 2 laps on the spot, reveling in a pure, unadulterated happiness like monkeys in the mountain forests. However, the chancellor and censor-in-chief showed no reaction at all. Someone called out to him, "Sir, what are you doing? Hurry up and be happy." The Minister of Studies seemed to have a delayed reaction. "I'm already very happy, I've made it big, and my future seems bright." But there were also classmates who worried. "Back when we were studying, I had an argument with Nanji. She wouldn't." Someone comforted him, "It's fine, Nanji doesn't hold grudges. She doesn't hold grudges. Is there anyone in the entire Imperial Academy who holds grudges more than her? Shut up. I won't allow you to slander Lord Mingchuan. Later, Zhu Qingju asked me why I insisted on staging a rebellion. I thought for a moment and told him, first, my master has held a grudge against His Majesty for many years, but is too timid to confront him directly. I needed to find the right opportunity to help him speak his mind. Secondly, His Majesty has been searching for me for many years. If he discovers that my master has been hiding me all this time, he will surely be furious. I need to do something that will make him even angrier, so that this matter can be overshadowed and minimized. When he sees how well my master has protected and raised me, even if he is angry, he won't be able to act on it. Thirdly, I cannot remain Song Nanji forever. I need a legitimate identity as an heir. Rather than dragging it out and thinking of other schemes, it's better to be straightforward. I want to see what my true standing is in his heart. It doesn't matter even if I end up shattered to pieces. The paper money I burn for you plus the paper money you burn for me will be enough for us to live lavishly in the afterlife. Zhu Qingju still sighed. But it's still too dangerous. I smiled and said, dangerous as it is, you still did it. He also laughed. No choice, I'm already on this pirate ship. Finally, he hesitated and said, what if His Majesty doesn't let you off? I rested my chin on my hand and remained silent for a long time. Before heading back to the palace, I leaned close to his ear and said, Zhu Qingju, how can you be so sure that I will definitely lose? He suddenly looked at me, belatedly remembering, that day, your personal shadow guard was nowhere to be seen. I raised a finger to my lips and shook my head. His throat moved slightly. I patted his shoulder. Zhu Qingju, never betray me, it won't end well for you. In the early spring of the 14th year of Yongxi, Princess Mingchuan, Li Shu, was appointed as the crown princess. On the day of the investiture, Song Qingru watched the ceremony from a distant high platform. After the ceremony concluded, he smiled with relief, his nose tingling slightly. How could he not know the true nature of this father and daughter? Their words were the most deceitful. Could genuine or feigned amnesia ever deceive a master of medicine like him? Her mind was perfectly clear. With not a trace of blood clot to be found, yet she was calling someone father. Well, since she's already calling him that, the first half of his life was deceived by her father, the second half by her daughter, but somehow, he found himself rather enjoying it. Forget it, crossing the northern shore, passing the southern ridge, accompanying you 1,000 miles, soaring ever higher. All that I have sought in this life has finally come to fulfillment. Extra chapter. After Li Jing and Cha Qing investigated the Song residence, their hearts remained unsettled for a long time. He compared the portraits of Song Nanji and his late wife for a long time, but no matter how he looked, they didn't resemble each other. Was she really his daughter? Their personalities were somewhat similar, though. But why didn't she inherit even 1/10 of her mother's beauty? But it really does look somewhat familiar. Who does it resemble? Li Jinghe picked up Song Nanji's portrait again and studied it for a long time, until late at night when he changed clothes and looked in the mirror, he slapped his thigh and exclaimed, "Oh no, it looks like me." The daughter who had never called him father was the first to rebel against him, and he was utterly furious. But upon hearing someone softly call out father, Li Jinghe could no longer hold back. Forcing himself to turn around, he called Song Qingru in. As soon as the door closed, he broke down, holding Song Qingru and crying like a child. "My Mingchuan, she's my daughter. I've been searching for her for so many years." After crying, he remembered the culprit was right before him. With a dark expression, he punched him. "You narrow-minded scoundrel, hiding someone else's daughter, you shameless wretch. Dare you deny your petty-hearted bastard?" Song Qingru was not to be outdone, striking back. "You're the one with a narrow heart. What would happen if my daughter followed you? Your harem is full of wolves and tigers, every one of them could devour her alive. Being your princess, she'd probably still end up being sent off for a political marriage in the future. I won't give her to you. I'm determined to teach her all the most useful abilities in the world." The two tangled for a while longer, both panting and exhausted, before collapsing to the ground. Finally, Li Jinghe said softly, "Lessie, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have driven you away back then. If you had been here, Linen City wouldn't have fallen into such a great crisis. Song Qingru burst into loud sobs. On the day Li Shu was appointed crown princess, she knelt in the Jiaoyang hall for the entire night. The fear that had been stirred by her mother's cold demeanor had long since faded. All that remained was an endless longing. As the first light of dawn broke, Li Shu lifted her head in a daze. Her gaze meeting the gentle eyes in the portrait of Empress Zhao Yuan, she whispered softly, "Mother, your daughter will not bring shame upon you." The days of being the crown princess were not entirely smooth sailing. For example, her younger sister Yunqing always avoided her. For instance, she often quarreled with His Majesty. As the emperor grew older, his temper worsened, and he would frequently end up bedridden from anger because of her. Then he was driven out and made to stand as punishment. Newly arrived eunuchs and palace maids would comment, "The crown princess is truly filial. Despite her busy schedule with state affairs, she always comes to attend to His Majesty whenever he is ill." The palace staff who knew the truth covered their faces. What nonsense! It was she who made him angry. Li Shu shook his head and sighed, "It's fine, we can live with days like these." But he hoped the Imperial Hospital would allocate him a few more bottles of better hair care oil. Or perhaps cut off half of Zhu Qingzhou's hair to make a wig for himself. That's not a bad idea.